Well, hello, America. Let me give you some news here. Stock market tumbled today. It fell 178 points today. Then, this morning, I read a report out of China. Walmart, Gap, and JCPenney's are now worried about, quote, terrifying rise on cotton prices that could skyrocket your clothing prices by as much as 30% by spring. That's inflation. Radical inflation. We've told you on this program for a while now, and it's becoming more and more apparent to everyone. Food prices are rising around the globe, and they are beginning to hit here at home. This is going to be a real problem for those who are not prepared, especially those who are living the closest to the edge. People will be looking for answers. People will be looking for anybody to do something, anything. And then there will be the hunter. Remember that word, the hunter. People who will be looking for power. They will have an answer to a problem that most likely they themselves created. And it won't be a new answer. Tonight, in the next 60 minutes, you will understand the answers that could be coming will be some of the oldest answers in the book. Hello, America. Welcome to the program. I wanted to talk to you here a little bit about the trouble that I believe is coming, and I've been telling you about it for a while, but I'm not going to, I'm tired of ringing the bell. I'm not going to ring the bell. I want you to know that this program is going to start focusing on answers, on things that you can do. The answer is not going to come from Washington. It's going to come from you. And just like the stewardess or the steward now on airplanes, I guess that would be me, put your tray tables in the upright and locked position and prepare. That's what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do in the coming weeks and months, and we're going to, quite honestly, I believe people in this audience are going to lead the way to a brighter tomorrow. Now, I want to start in kind of an unusual place, and we will start and end the program here. And believe me, this is worth the ending. I want to show you this building. This is where we start and end. This is the EU Parliamentary Building. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Pretty striking. It's pretty dramatic the way it looks. It's obviously an unfinished building. It is the symbol of one united Europe, one language, one Europe. This is what George Soros calls it.
The European Union was built by a process of piecemeal social engineering, as advocated by Karl Popper.
His hero.
Indeed, it's probably the most successful feat of social engineering in history.
Okay. Popper, if I'm not mistaken, is George Soros' hero. He's a guy that you should look up because it's where we're headed. It is the, what did he call it? The greatest feat in social engineering. Well, maybe. How's that social engineering working out today in Spain? They are sporting Europe's highest rate of unemployment at 20.5%. By the way, that's the country that led the way on the green jobs. Their debt is 53% of GDP. Right next door, Portugal. They're at 11% unemployment. Their debt is 76% of GDP. Greece, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for them, it did. Their debt hit a staggering 120% of GDP, and they now have 12.2 unemployment. And now the spillover to Ireland. Unemployment is at 14%. Their debt has worsened to 65% of GDP. And Ireland is where the world is looking today. The EU, spearheaded by Germany, is urging Ireland to take the bailout. Why? Well, to calm the global markets. You see, we're all tied together now, and Europe especially so. They're all tied together. What happens to one spreads to the others. It's dominoes. Portugal is spooked. Spain is spooked. They can't withstand Ireland causing a shock to the system with bad news because they will topple. We've talked about this on the program before almost a year ago. I talked about the dominoes falling. Do you remember? This is when I think we were just talking about Greece, and at the time Germany was telling Greece the same thing that Greece is now telling Ireland. Well, it didn't work for Greece now, did it? Didn't help their situation much. They're still rioting in the streets. Their situation seems to be getting worse and worse. And yet the EU is doing it all over again. Why not? Now, why are they doing it? Well, let me alert all of the Soros bloggers out there on this one. Yeah, you ready? Here's why they're doing it. Here's why they're pushing everyone into it, because they're building a new world order. And here's why it will fail. You ready? Because what they are aiming for is an affront to God. How can Glenn Beck actually say it's an affront to God? I can tell you with 100% total assurity. Why? Because even when it's good intentioned, we know what happens when big government gets control of the people. What? Oh yeah, it's the oldest story in the book. I'll show it to you in a minute. History that will boggle your mind. Ireland doesn't have the money. They're only good for part of 2011. So why the wait? Because they know what happens when they go outside for help. They don't want to ask for the help. They don't want to take the help. Why? Because they lose their uniqueness. They lose their sovereignty. And they are afraid of being gobbled up. Ireland will no longer be Ireland anymore. They will have to do exactly what the EU says. They're on the hook. We are on the verge now of doing the same thing that they did years ago. And it's not going to take us as long to reach their point of no return. Will we reach the point of Ireland or Greece? Oh yeah, we will. How do I know? Well, do you remember the $600 billion bailout? Here it is from the Wall Street Journal. Bucking the Federal Reserve's efforts to push interest rates lower, investors are selling off U.S. government debt, driving rates in many cases to their highest levels in more than 3 months. In other words, you know that whole print the money thing that they said is going to keep the interest rates or the yield so people will be able to buy it? Interest rate, yeah. Yet at highest levels in more than 3 months. Uh-oh. It means the exact opposite of what the Fed told us would happen is happening. Should you be surprised that the central power has failed to control something? Of course. People are not cats to be rounded up. It's a trend all through history. Do you know, show that building again. Do you know the idea behind this building? I mean, Europe's not always been one big happy family, but they'll make it one big happy family. The idea was to join together, focus their power centrally, and become a world superpower. Then they abandoned their currencies in favor of one currency, and they officially tied each other together. As nations, you're seeing this in Ireland. They're pressured into doing what's best for the EU first. Worry about your country afterwards. When Greece falls, they fall. Ireland falls, they all fall. It's what we talked about on this program before. Mutually assured economic destruction. Do you remember this? There's MAD, add an E in there. Mutually assured economic destruction. You are probably the only audience in America that has even heard of this theory. And it is what's happening to our world. The whole world is being pushed into a global model of government. And George Soros, we've told you, we've shown you the strings. The strings that he's pulling are amazing. Is it a coincidence, the EU? And really, I mean, that's where we're going, and he's a big fan. Really? Global government. That's everybody's answer, it seems, today. Our founders would say smaller government. Everyone who has power now is saying bigger. Tonight, I want to spend some time on global government. One big government, one language. People like George Soros talk about global government like it's a brand new idea. You know, Popper is the guy who's, he's the guy who's come up with this great idea. Really? No, it's actually one of the oldest ideas known to man. Have you ever heard of the Tower of Babel? Oh, this is fascinating. Buckle up, gang, here we go. It has affected each and every one of our lives and our culture without us even really knowing. Your kids start babbling. Comes from this story. Has anybody ever called, do you remember when we were kids? You're a Nimrod. This story. Even Bugs Bunny called Elmer Fudd a Nimrod. Why did he call him a Nimrod? Because he was a hunter. How does Bugs Bunny calling someone a Nimrod because they're a hunter tie in to the Tower of Babel? It's all there. Everything. The Bible is not really just a history book. It is really to teach us lessons so we don't forget them. They're the most important lessons in all of man. And you see the pattern. It's always the same pattern. Well, what is the pattern here we're supposed to be looking for? It's in the book of Genesis. After the great flood, everybody on earth was getting together, and then all of a sudden, somebody had a different idea. Hey, how about we all speak one language, and we'll build a tower to reach the sky? Then God wasn't happy about it, and he confused the language, and they all scattered. That's probably your understanding of the Tower of Babel. I've read this story many, many times, but I never really understood it until I talked to a friend of mine. You can read it a million times and never fully understand it unless you have a rabbi, unless you can read it in ancient Hebrew. I can't read Hebrew. I'm guessing you can't either. But we're both in luck because I've got my rabbi. If you have 40 minutes, I promise you this will blow your mind. We have Rabbi Lappin. How are you, sir?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. The rabbi was, when was this? 2-3 months ago? And you handed me a CD that you made, The Tower of Power.
Correct.
And you live in Seattle, and you came out and you were on the set, and you said, Glenn, I don't even know why I'm giving this to you. I just felt like I had to give this to you. I started listening to it, and I told you this. I couldn't believe it because I was doing research on ancient Babylon.
Oh, my goodness.
And all of these things. And I look at this, and it is the answer of many of the things that I was looking for. The Tower of Babel. Let's start up here. On this chalkboard here, I've written the things that I remember from the story. Great king says, let's build a tower. Why is that a problem? Who's the king? Why the tower?
Well, I mean, the important thing is exactly what you said a few moments ago, and that is that we're living now in a time where it's literally the first generation in history where people consider themselves educated and yet are biblically illiterate.
Right.
I mean, there are pundits who
historically illiterate.
In every possible way. But
right.
Imagine people who are the heirs of Western civilization not knowing the foundation of Western civilization. People are on television all over the place, probably don't even know how many books in the 5 books of Moses. So we're talking about a remarkable fact, which people have dismissed the Bible as some obsolete collection of legends about long-forgotten nations.
Well, even if let's just do this. Let's say, I don't know, Michael Moore is watching. And so let's just say Michael's out there and he's, got Cheetos all over himself and he's like, it's a legend. Let's just look at the legend itself. I don't believe it's a legend. But what is it teaching? A great king says, let's build a tower. What's wrong with that? Well,
a few things are wrong with it. First of all, he didn't actually say, according to chapter 11 in Genesis, and these 9 verses really reveal this dark secret that lies at the deepest recesses of the human soul, which is our susceptibility to become slaves. It's there, it's ready, it can pounce at any moment and transform us into serfs. And sure enough, these 9 verses in chapter 11 of Genesis, as you say, the king Nimrod doesn't say, let's build a tower. He starts off with this extraordinary pronouncement, hey, everybody, let's build bricks. And then he says, let's build a city and a tower. Now, ordinarily, people would say, hey, let's build a city and a tower. Shining city on the hill, said John Winthrop. Right. And people would say, how are you going to do it? Well, we'll make bricks. No. Here, the key thing was, let's make bricks. And what's more, he's not identified necessarily or early as a king. He's first of all identified as a hunter back in chapter 10, verses 8 through 10. Now, here's the key thing about that, Glenn. Everybody was hunting.
Right.
Today, it's just the good guys hunt. But back then, everybody hunted. That's how you ate. Why on earth would this one man, Nimrod, be identified as a hunter? Because he hunted not animals, he hunted people. Not to kill them. He hunted people to seduce them into becoming his subjects and to allow him to become their master.